Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. As always, I am your host, Fearless Floyd. And as you see behind me, World War III, Middle East Armageddon. Look that way. Bomb, Iran. Bomb, Iran. Bomb, Iran. Y'all remember that? That was real big back in the, was that the early 80s, maybe? Late 70s, early 80s? But what I want to talk to you about is what Armageddon may look like. So this is a very important video. You should watch it, listen to it. I'm not going to give you my point of view. I'm going to give you straight from the horse's mouth, as I always want to do. So we'll start right here. This is Tucker Carlson's latest interview with Colonel McGregor, who I have posted videos of on my channel. So let's just hear what these two gentlemen have to say regarding the current climate in the, I'm not talking about weather either, in the Middle East.
We seem to be heading to war with Iran.
Oh.
Certainly the Biden.
I apologize. Hang on. That ain't gonna work for you guys. But that will. Back to the beginning, and we will start over.
We seem to be heading to war with Iran. Certainly the Biden administration is pushing us in that direction. What's new and interesting and ominous is that very few Republicans, the opposition party, are pushing back. Instead, some of the party's leaders are encouraging it. Here, for example, is Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina from last weekend on NBC.
You said this week that the only way to keep the war from escalating is to hold Iran accountable, part of what you're talking about now, and that it might mean bombing their oil refineries. Yeah. Have you had any discussions with the Biden administration about this?
A bit. Here's my message. If Hezbollah, which is a proxy of Iran, launches a massive attack on Israel, I'll consider that a threat to the state of Israel, existential in nature. I will introduce a resolution in the United States Senate to allow military action by the United States in conjunction with Israel to knock Iran out of the oil business. Iran, if you escalate this war, we're coming for you.
Are you effectively poised to declare war on Iran? That's very strong language.
I am poised to use military force to destroy the source of funding for Hamas and Hezbollah.
No, that's Lindsey Graham. A few others in the Republican Party will be that open about their intentions, but very few disagree with him. Certainly not in private. They agree. So what would war with Iran mean? Well, it's hard to know because virtually no one who's talking about it in public is operating from a deep interest in America's interest. Is this good for us or is it not? Yeah. Former Colonel Douglas McGregor is the CEO of Our Country, Our Choice, and one of the first people we turn to for analysis of events like this because he is interested in what happens to the United States. He joins us now. Doug, thank you for coming on. Do you think that we are moving toward war with Iran?
Yes, I do. And it looks like the chosen destination is indeed Armageddon. There doesn't seem to be any real appreciation for the implications for us and frankly, for Europe and the world, as well as the Middle East, of such action. You know, take for an example, just on the economic side, about 20% of the world's oil passes through the Straits of Hormuz every month. Probably 25% of liquefied natural gas. And you're talking about shutting down 2 to 3 million barrels a day of oil from Iran. This entire region is involved in the war. This is not an Iranian monopoly by any stretch of the imagination. But the point is that when we're looking at 10-year Treasury yields up over 5%, and people are increasingly convinced that the Fed has lost control, the economic side of the house is a catastrophe. Then when you look at the military side, you have to look at the arsenal of missiles that Iran possesses. And they can reach out 1,200 miles with great precision, very high explosive conventional warheads that would do enormous damage, destroying whole city blocks in places like Haifa, Tel Aviv, even Jerusalem, though I doubt they would attack Jerusalem. The bottom line is that we need to think this through, and everyone right now is emoting. There is no thinking anywhere, as far as I can tell. The only possible exception may be, amazingly enough, Mr. Erdogan in Turkey, who came out this morning and indicated he was willing to mediate the dispute between Israel and Hamas. Whether or not anyone in Washington or Israel is interested in talking, I don't know. But if we could sideline Turkey and keep Turkey out of the fight, that would ultimately help Israel enormously.
And before I dive back into Tucker, I'm going to show you another video produced 7 months ago. Whether or not it's factual or not, I'll let you decide. You are the own determination of your own beliefs. All I can do is present the facts as they are stated. So next, we're going to move on over here. Wow, who the hell is that blowhard? That's an ugly dude, ain't he? How fat he is. They almost screwed up again. I hate that you have to do that every time. Okay, cool. I'm optimized, as it says. Okay, let me enlarge this for you guys. And that is one of my sponsors back there. I'm my other sponsor, in case you haven't noticed. All right, so this is a 6-minute video. We're going to run through this real quick. It is, and we are recording. And welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. As always, I am your host, Fearless Floyd. And I want to thank you for being here, joining me tonight. I want my background for you guys. Here we go. Are you ready? That space is for rent. All right. Today is Friday night, February 24th, 2023. I'm sorry. Yeah, 24th, 2023. And I know you're looking for the right news, but hey, I wanted to show you guys something, okay? Because everybody's like, oh man, those things don't exist. That's a lie. That's a conspiracy theory, Floyd. Bam. Iran establishes 2,200 kilometers of strategic underground cities. IRGC. These strategic cities retain warships able to deploy drones, ocean-going helicopter carriers, missile launching capabilities, and several other military innovations from the IRGC. By the news desk, February 24th, 2023. These people put it in the public. Yes, this is a deep underground military base, a D-U-M-B, in Iran. Iran's announcing it publicly. So guess what? If Iran has them, you better bet your sweet bippy, as they used to say. The United States has tons of them. No pun intended. Ali Reza Pangsiri, top commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, disclosed on February 24th that the Islamic Republic has already created 2,200 kilometers. That's 2,200 kilometers. That's a a kilometer is 2.2 miles, kids. Wow. These strategic sites retain warships ready to deploy drones, ocean-going helicopter carriers, missile launching capabilities, and several other military innovations from the IRGC. Kang Siri added that these military sites are connected to incoming and outgoing waterways and pass through islands near Iran's shores. Local reports indicate that merchants and oil tankers pass through these waters on a daily basis. The IRGC's Navy commander recently announced that Tehran has planned 9 naval training operations in its southern waters and has added 650 new vessels to its Navy with speeds ranging from 55 to 110 knots. Oh my God, that's like smoking. Kang Siri added that the maximum speed of these vessels surpasses 3 times the amount of a standard U.S. vessel, which travels at a maximum speed of 35 knots. I mean, they're literally claiming they're going to do circles around the U.S. Navy. He further disclosed that the vessels retain combat systems that are able to hide them from enemy radars and contains missiles that are manufactured locally. Iran's military capabilities have vastly improved in the past few years, as Tehran is known for its IRGC-made Shahed 136 suicide drones, as well as for vessels from its elite naval force in the Persian Gulf. Last week, BBC Persian reported that an Israeli-linked oil tanker was attacked by an Iranian Shahed drone a week prior. Senior Israeli security officials confirmed the report and suggested that the Iranian attack was an attempt at revenge for attacks attributed to Israel against Iran. Sorry, let me there you go. I've been talking all day. Iran has accused Israel of attacking a number of sensitive military and nuclear sites in the past few years. No casualties were reported, and the damage to the tanker was allegedly not significant. However, on Valentine's Day, February 14th, Iranian state media reported that Iran had killed 2 Israeli officers in retaliation for a January 29th sabotage attack in Isfahan. According to a report by Iranian state media, an Israeli spokesman confirmed that 2 Israeli officers had been killed in accidents. The report noted that other Israeli sources have indicated that the killing of the 2 officers came as part of an Iranian operation in response to the Isfahan attack. On the 29th of January, an explosion occurred at an Iranian Defense Ministry ammunition depot in the city of Isfahan. According to Israeli sources, this was a booby-trapped drone attack. No casualties were reported. Additionally, a large fire broke out in a major refinery in Tehran. The cause of the fire remains unclear. But just wanted to show you this, okay? These are deep underground military bases, kids. They're coming right out and telling you they got 220 kilometers. Okay? There you go. 220 kilometers is 1,367 plus miles. That's 1,000 miles. That's 1,300 miles. There you go. It's not a conspiracy. It's not a theory. It's a fact. Dumbs exist. Thank you, Iran, for putting it out there in the public. Now everybody knows. Appreciate you. Like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, leave a comment below. The Fierce guy's such a clown, isn't he? Sometimes I don't know what to do with him. You know, like put him in a box. Anyway, so we're going to dive right back into Tucker. So as you see, Iran claims to have, you just heard Colonel McGregor talk about these missiles that have a range of 1,200 miles, correct? They have 1,200 miles of underground tunnels and dumbs and ports where they have these submarines and these helicopter carriers. All of it. You just heard him say it in public, right from the article. Well, this is nothing new. This is what we're up against. So do you think Iran is the only country in the Middle East that has dumbs? They all have them now. They all have them. They all want to, be like just exactly like the United States. Can you blame them? We are the greatest country in the world. However, our government right now, this administration is deliberately sabotaging the Republic of the United States of America. On the record for saying that. Now let's move on back to Tucker. And hear a little bit more about what Colonel McGregor has to say about the circumstances currently in the Middle East.
So what would happen to the United States if we followed Senator Graham's advice and just began bombing critical infrastructure in Iran? What would happen then?
Well, all of the bases that we have in Iraq and Syria, unfortunately, where we still have over 1,000 Americans, all of those would be targeted at this time. They would target them accurately, and this destruction would be wholesale. I would expect trouble here at home and in the United States because of the open border. Hezbollah has a very large operation in Mexico. There are no doubt many Hezbollah agents inside the United States. We can only begin to imagine the kind of trouble they could cause. The missile and space program in Iran is very advanced, as is their cyber warfare capability. All of these things would be brought to bear against us. But what's most important, I think, for Americans to understand is if we attack Iran on the basis of Hezbollah's alleged willingness to attack Israel if Israel invades Gaza, we will end up in a fight with Russia. Russia will not sit by quietly and watch Iran destroyed by the United States air and naval power in the region. And once Russia enters this, it becomes much more than just a local conflict, maybe more than just a regional war. We haven't thought this through. We need to do that. And I doubt seriously at that point that the Turks would be able to stay out. The Turks are Sunni Muslims. They are the de facto leaders of the Sunni Muslim world. They have the largest armed forces in the region. They are in close proximity to Israel. They could move forces south through Syria very rapidly. And I'm sure Bashar al-Assad, assuming he even survives the opening of this campaign, would not obstruct them.
So many questions, but just to back up one click, you described Iran's missile arsenal, but Iran is a country that's been the subject of a very intense sanction regime from the United States, increased by the last president, Donald Trump, but for a long time. How is Iran still such a powerful country militarily given those sanctions? It sounds like maybe they didn't work.
Oh, no, I think that's an important point, Tucker, and you're absolutely right. We place so much value on these sanctions and assume that they have this profound impact. Normally, sanctions harm the population in terms of lowering its standard of living, making life more difficult for the everyday citizen, but it doesn't fundamentally alter the policy or the goals and objectives of the government. And this is something that I don't think we understand. And the same thing is true for Hamas and Gaza. You know, you want to go after Hamas. You want to destroy it. I think everyone with a sound mind is interested in the destruction of Hamas. But do you want to kill hundreds of thousands of people in order to get at Hamas? That's the question. We have the same problem in Iran. Our sanctions have not harmed the regime's ability to develop and build very complex and sophisticated missiles. These missiles are very accurate now. There are hundreds, if not thousands. And the long-range missiles, the 1,200-mile range theater ballistic missiles, are a very serious threat to us in the region and to Israel. And the sanctions have had no impact there. If anything, the Iranians have pulled together the best human capital in their country, the best engineers, the best thinkers, and put them to work primarily on missile technology and on cyber warfare. And that's where we stand right now. We have to expect the worst as a result if we strike Iran.
How is the U.S. military, do you think, having spent your life in it, leading troops in combat and at the Pentagon, positioned to respond to war with Iran right now? Are we in a strong position or not, in your view?
No, I don't think we're in a strong position. I think we're probably at the weakest point in our recent history. I think you've got to look at the realities of new weapon systems, new capabilities. The United States Navy, if it's going to preserve its capability at sea, is probably going to be compelled to operate somewheres north and west of Sicily. If it comes within closer range, then it falls into this envelope where the Iranians can strike it. And as I said before, we have to assume the Russians will come into this. Once you move into the Eastern Mediterranean, you are vulnerable to the Kinshal missiles and other missiles, cruise missiles and hypersonic missiles that the Russians have. This makes it very difficult to fly strikes in support of the Israeli Defense Force against Hezbollah, because now you're flying a very long distance. You deliver your ordnance, you have to land in Israel in order to refuel. Israel is going to operate under a hail, if not a rainstorm, of missiles and rockets, making it very dangerous to do so. So our naval power, while substantial, may not have the desired impact on the ground that we would like. And then finally, we have no real army anymore. The Army is down to perhaps, what, 450,000. How much of that is ready to fight is open to debate. Much of it is sitting in Eastern Europe right now. We don't have the means to rapidly ship a large force of 80 to 100,000 troops on the ground into the region, which means that we're reliant on special forces and right now 2,000 Marines and perhaps 2,000 special forces and special operations forces. That's not going to make much of a dent. And as we've seen quite recently within the last 24 hours or so, some of our special ops forces and Israeli special ops forces went into Gaza to reconnoiter, to plan for where they might want to go to free hostages and make an impact. And they were shot to pieces and took heavy losses, as I understand it. I think that's where we're headed. And I don't see that as a win for Israel in any way, shape, or form, and I certainly think it's very dangerous for us. You know, as I've tried to point out to a number of people, until Britain entered World War I, it was just another European war. Once Britain entered it, it became a global war. Well, once we are a co-belligerent, we enter this thing, it's going to be very difficult for Russia and Turkey not to also come into this fight against us, because they will not tolerate the sort of collective punishment that Israel plans for Gaza.
The U.S. military does have an awful lot of generals, however, as you pointed out, multiples of the number we had, the absolute number we had during World War II. And they're paid to think about this stuff. Why has it dawned on no one, apparently, who's spoken publicly anyway, that this could really harm our country gravely? Why is no one saying that?
Well, I'm sure there are people in the U.S. military who are aware, but let's be frank. Most of the people at the top of the military have never operated under artillery fire or rocket fire. They haven't seen direct fire combat. They haven't seen real war per se. Remember, we've had the luxury of sitting around forward operating bases and striking opponents that were armed with AK-47s and command detonated mines, an occasional mortar or rocket. Very, very low intensity combat. This is a high-end conventional war that we're looking at with the potential to go nuclear, which obviously I don't think we or the Russians want to happen, but we have the wild card in Israel. They do have a nuclear capability. We don't know what the tripwire is for them to employ such a weapon. At that point, of course, all bets are off, and I think most of the world would turn against Israel. Right now, they just have to worry about the Muslim world against them. It would certainly widen if they went that far. There are too many unknowns and uncertainties here. And, you know, everyone always assumes at the beginning of such a conflict, well, it'll be contained. We'll only have to fight these people, Hamas, maybe Hezbollah. It never works out that way. These things always last longer than everyone thinks. The resources required are much more profound than what we anticipated. And remember, we've already used up many of our war stocks in Ukraine, and we've left Ukraine in a state of ruins, places on life support, 500,000 dead. What are we going to do to Israel if we press ahead down this road? And it seems, listening to Secretary of State Blinken this morning, who more and more sounds like our commander-in-chief, that there is no room for negotiation, no room for mediation. Hamas must be destroyed. We must go into Gaza. If so, I think we're on this very dangerous road to Armageddon.
What is
And I'm going to pause right there. Hence the title of the video. So as you see, the complexities in the Middle East are very complicated. And you have to understand that while there are territorial border lines, those weren't created by the inhabitants of that territory. Those were created by the British East India Company and all the world's oil companies existing at the time, divvying up the Middle East how they wanted to, and they cut right through tribes, right through, you know, that's why there's so much strife in the Middle East, is because of what the Europeans and Americans did to the Middle East when they divvied it up back when they discovered oil. So there's a big problem with all of that. Now, as I've described, Iran has DOMs, and they have, some very capable military hardware. They obviously have an army. They obviously have a extreme loathsomeness for Israel, as I showed in the previous article from the Cradle that I did back in February, and 8 months ago. 8 months ago. It says 7, but it's the 24th, February 24th. Today's October 24th. So how's that for serendipity? All right. So as you know, there's a powder keg over there. Nobody knows what's going to happen, what's going to go on. As you hear Colonel McGregor address some of these issues regarding the armed forces of the United States of America, our overseas capabilities, as well as our domestic capabilities, our current economic climate, i.e. the U.S. Treasury, Federal Reserve Bank, and even the banks. I believe he touched a little bit on that. So basically what he's saying is the United States is bankrupt. We done went over there and just screwed the hell out of Ukraine, but all the politicians got their little palms greased very handsomely. And now we're over here in the Middle East, and we got Joe Blow stumbling around the Middle East, has no clue what the hell's going on. I guess he probably thinks he's at the beach in New Hampshire or something. This is a really sick time period of the United States of America. I'm going to tell you that. Okay. And the reason being, as I address this issue here, we have our own domestic issues. We have Trump on trial in New York. He just came out after hearing Michael Cohen testifying against him. Then we have Jenna Ellis, the fourth co-defendant in the state of Georgia versus Donald J. Trump, if they have it at all. She copped out today, so she's one of 4 who have agreed to testify against all the other co-defendants, i.e. Trump. So who's going to be the last individual standing? This is going to be a eye-opener. I can tell you it's my belief, in my own personal opinion, that the flashpoint for the next civil war in the United States, Civil War II, is going to happen. It's going to start in Fulton County, Georgia. That's my opinion, my story. I'm sticking to it. I do catch things before everybody else, i.e. the Iranian dumbs. So let's continue with Tucker, because I want you to hear everything that Colonel McGregor says, because he's basically parroting my own beliefs, thoughts, ideas, almost 100%. Same thing with Tucker. We're all on the same wavelength. We really understand that the United States, believe me, when you hear these preppers and these survivalists start talking about, hey, you need a 3-month store of food, 6-month store of food, even longer if you can afford it. Okay. They're not talking about a government lockdown. They're talking about a domestic terrorist event that is in more than one area, location, jurisdiction, town, city, state. Multiple happen across multiple jurisdictions. I can sit here and tell you what my imagination, what I was a terrorist, what I would do, but I'm not putting it out there in the ether and giving them any more ideas than what they can already create on their own. But yes, I'd say with 12 people, oh yeah, you could create some immense havoc in a city like the city of Houston if you know what you're doing. If you have everything prepared, you can 30 days you can prep and really, really, really damage a large city. 30 days. That's all it takes. All you gotta do is find the infrastructure and then start from there. But that's no secret. That's no secret at all. So that can be out there in the ether. Let's get back over here to Tucker and Colonel McGregor. I want to thank them both. Tucker Carlson, man, you're a godsend to the people of the United States of America, man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate everything you're doing. I'm glad you got away from Fox to be able to come out here and pontificate on your own bully pulpit. Thank you, sir. Look forward to your new media group. So let's get back over here to Tucker.
What is the objective of the IDF and of Blinken, of the United States and Israel in this short term? Destroy Hamas, but what does that mean?
Well, to destroy Hamas in the minds, I think, of policymakers in Washington as well as in Israel is to systematically root them out and kill them in Gaza. Mm-hmm. Now, let's be frank. When you go into an urban environment, you can't pick or choose your targets very easily. First of all, no matter how well trained you are, you're moving into an area that is rubbled. There are ruins. It's very difficult to negotiate in that. When I say negotiate, I mean negotiate the terrain through the rubble. You don't know where the enemy's going to pop up. Once you destroy all these buildings, he can be anywhere. So you're going to take losses going in. But more important, once you start going in there, you're going to end up killing whatever you find. Because the soldier, the Israeli soldier, the American soldier, very much the same, they want to live. They want to survive. When in doubt, pull the trigger. They're not going to stop and say, now, wait a minute, before I shoot, I really need to think about this because that may be a civilian or there may be a family there. That's not going to happen. You can't expect that. So the notion that this is a kind of warfare that is so precise that it can avoid so-called collateral damage is just nonsense. We can't expect miracles from the IDF or our own troops, which means that you're going to annihilate everything in Gaza. And remember, the Israelis would like to push the population out. The problem is when you push the population out, if you did into Egypt, you're going to run into trouble with the Egyptians. But even if you manage to get them there, you're only moving the problem that confronts you 20 miles, 30 miles away. In other words, killing people isn't going to solve the problem. But it's very attractive at the moment, and it's very difficult to talk people out of it.
Do you believe American troops will be engaged, physically present in the invasion of Gaza?
I'm sure they will, because we have American citizens who are hostages. And we've already made it clear that we will assist and support the Israelis in freeing those hostages. Again, the problem is, how do you get the hostages out when you're fighting in this extraordinarily dirty and complex environment? What's to prevent the hostages from simply being executed as soon as you move in force into Gaza? I think the Israelis know that. I think our leadership in Washington knows it. They may have even decided that if that happens, that's tragic, but the ultimate goal of destroying Hamas demands this. Again, it's the issue of collective punishment. I would encourage Americans everywhere to listen to King Abdullah of Jordan's speech in Cairo just a couple of days ago, where he made it clear that he agreed with the abhorrence of what had happened in Israel and loathes Hamas for its barbarity and savagery. But he also goes on to point out that collective punishment meted out to 2 million people is unacceptable, both under international law and for humanitarian reasons. That's the problem. And as Americans see more destruction and more film footage and photographs come out of Gaza showing children, women, old men dying, being killed, the support for Israel is going to erode. And at the same time, the anger and hatred inside the region, which already dislikes Israel, is going to be phenomenal. So Israel is doing something that I think no one has ever accomplished, at least not in my lifetime, and that is uniting Sunni and Shia against itself. That's why I think we have an obligation to save Israel from itself. But that's not a popular position. Right now, it's bombs away, and everyone is cheering.
What about the argument often articulated, including by leading presidential candidates recently, that considerations like the ones you just raised, like the long-term effects of decisions or global public opinion, downstream terror attacks, thinking about any of that is a violation of principle, and you're basically giving in to the terrorists by weighing any of it. How would you respond to that?
Most politicians follow public opinion. Right now, public opinion supports violence against Hamas, and if that includes the destruction of Gaza, so be it, we support it. Very few people look beyond that and understand the larger consequences. In the last century, or I guess I should say in the early 20th century, the great powers intervened on more than one occasion to prevent Turkey from being destroyed. Not because they loved the Ottoman Turks, but because they saw the alternative being chaos. Turkey had a role to play. Therefore, we want to preserve it. We have to think about Egypt. Egypt has been a good strategic partner for Israel. They've kept the peace there for decades. The Egyptians are now in a very difficult position. At least 100,000 Egyptian troops have been moved towards the border with Gaza, involving several divisions. Under great pressure from public opinion in the Arab world, in the Muslim world, they may have to engage the Israelis because no one will protect the population in Gaza. That's a terrible, terrible possibility, one that we don't want, because if that happens to Egypt and Hezbollah attacks from the north, that will bring in everyone else. And we're suddenly confronting a war on a regional level that is going to harm us economically, physically in many ways, but could threaten the very existence of Israel, which I think is the root problem here. We don't want Israel's existence threatened. We want to save Israel. We want to keep it intact. But we may not be able to do that if this war runs out of control. And let's be frank, historically, wars run out of control. They move in directions you never anticipated. So if you think you can plot this route forward, as Lindsey Graham thinks, you're crazy. Once this is unleashed, it's not manageable anymore.
You made reference a couple of times to the American citizens being held by Hamas. What do we know about them?
Well, I think most of them are American citizens who happen to be Jewish, who are there to celebrate during the holiday period or participate in this music festival we've heard so much about. I don't think they ever anticipated anything like this happening.
Yeah.
The problem is, as we've said before, extracting them from this haystack is nigh on to impossible.
What about the concerns about terrorism in the United States in the wake of all of this?
Well, I think they're very valid. Yeah, I think these concerns are very, very valid. We've had open borders now for the last 2.5 years, but we've had an illegal migration problem for the last 3+ decades. We don't know who's in the country. We really don't. No one at Homeland Security can tell you who is here. The Europeans face something quite similar. They were bullied into admitting millions of Muslims from the Middle East and Africa. We've been bullied by our government to open the borders and let in effectively anybody who wants to come. So we don't know who's here, but we do know that Hamas, as well as Hezbollah, have positions in Mexico. Of the two, Hezbollah is much stronger, much larger, and much better equipped and financed. So we have to expect that once Hezbollah is in the war and we are against them and Iran, that much of our infrastructure will be at risk. Something as bad or potentially even worse than 9/11 could happen here. This brings us back to the whole issue of immigration and border security. We've essentially ignored it. The same politicians who are pushing for war against virtually everyone in the Middle East, which is what it boils down to in the final analysis, don't seem to have thought carefully about protecting us or our borders from all of the terrible things that we've seen in Israel. How much damage could these same people do to us in a shopping mall in the space of 15 minutes? It doesn't take much imagination to understand how dangerous this is.
Do you think that this war, if it comes, and it, as you said, it seems like it is, how will that affect American domestic politics? War traditionally has been used by the people in power to shut down dissent. Can you imagine that happening in this case?
Well, I think they'll try. Fortunately, thanks to people like Elon Musk, who bought Twitter and ended the censorship or suspended it, the truth does get through and reach Americans. But Americans will figure out pretty quickly if two things tend to happen at once. You have the war overseas and the war here, but remember the economy and the financial condition right now. If you turn on any of the business channels, for the first time in my memory, lots and lots of analysts are coming on and talking about the Fed having lost control, the rising interest rates, the inability to manage and cope with the sovereign national debt of $33 trillion. And that's the tip of a proverbial iceberg. We already have Americans who are struggling with inflation anyway. Now we're looking at potentially scarcity. We've drained our strategic oil reserve for all intents and purposes. If the Strait of Hormuz is shut down, if the Suez Canal is closed, we're in a lot of trouble in the short run, that's for sure. How rapidly can we recover from all of this? How many refineries can we put back into operation? How much drilling can we do quickly? The answer is not very much. So draining that strategic oil reserve was a very serious mistake.
But as we become impoverished and chaotic and subject to these terror attacks, we'll be winning important moral victories, don't you think?
Well, in our effort to stand at Israel's side and help protect Israel, we have taken a different route and cast moral turpitude to the side. In other words, how do you help one without committing a war crime against the other? This is the problem with collective punishment. This is the problem with annihilating Gaza and trying to sweep out its population. That's unacceptable to us as Americans. I don't think if you sat down any of Israel's most ardent supporters in the United States and said, are you willing to trade the lives of several 100,000 people in Gaza for the lives taken in Israel by Hamas? After all, Hamas and Palestinian Jihad were the fighters. They lost 1,500. There were 3,000 involved in the several waves of the attack. They're dead. Now we're looking at perhaps 5,000 civilians dead. How many more will we witness? Is that somehow or another justified morally? And I think a lot of Americans will struggle with that. That's why I say it would be best if we had a cooling off period. I'm glad that the Israelis are waiting for additional naval power to arrive on station in the Mediterranean, and also for additional equipment, theater ballistic missile defense, and so forth. But we need to use this time to think carefully about how far we want to go, because right now it's a one-way street to regional war. And I don't think anybody really wants that if they think about it carefully. Therefore, looking at someone like Erdogan, however slippery we may consider him to be, his willingness to mediate is a bright light in an otherwise very dark sky. And we should look to that, because we don't want the regional war. It will destroy us economically. We're already in bad shape. We've already suffered because of the foolish intervention in Ukraine to try to destroy Russia. Now we have Russia more powerful militarily than it's been since the 80s, and it's poised to enter on the side of Iran. We should all give that some serious thought.
Last question. Do you know of any leaders in the United States, political leaders at the Pentagon, within the Biden administration, who are thinking clearly about this, which is to say, who are framing their thoughts on it around what's best for the United States long term? Is anybody thinking that way?
Yes, there are. The problem is none of them hold high positions in government, and none of their voices or their analyses or their viewpoints are going to reach anybody in power. I think you have to listen carefully to what Secretary of State Blinken said. He was absolutely unambiguous. We are going to destroy Hamas, whatever that takes. That means regional war, frankly. And anybody who thinks that people are going to say, oh, no, we're afraid of America, we're not going to risk that, they're wrong. They are not afraid to risk attacking Israel for fear of coming into confrontation with us. We are not the power we were in 1991, and they know that. And economically, our position is very fragile. Let's face it. So the bottom line is, yes, there are people out there, but they're not being heard, and they're not going to be heard in the current environment.
Doug McGregor, thank you so much for that. Appreciate it.
There you go. Heard it from Tucker, Colonel McGregor. You heard it from the Cradle article from back February 24th, 2023, 8 months ago, that Iran has DUMBs. So is this a conflict that we really want to go get into? You just heard somebody give you an honest opinion of the pros and cons of the United States getting further involved in this Middle Eastern conflict, as far as militarily, not in any type of emissarial or negotiation position, which Trump would probably have already done, stepped in there and said, hey, come here, you two, and let's, we're going to settle this now. We're not going to have this. That's what it should be. It should be all the Middle Eastern countries combined should get together, and they should hold Hamas accountable for the atrocities that they have committed in Israel. Absolutely. That was straight up genocide. No, you can't even call them war crimes because the war hadn't even been declared. So that was just straight up, serial killing. So those individuals, yeah, they should be held accountable. Now it's become a tit for tat, which really sucks because now there are no rules. Nobody's playing fair. Nobody's playing by any kind of humanitarian standards previously negotiated. The Geneva Convention, any of that. It's kill on sight, and yeah, we'll sort them out later if we have time. If not, we're just going to trample upon them and continue to kill more people. That's what's going on right now. Do we want to get involved in that? Let me give you a piece of sage advice. All right. You see the Biden administration, they're like, okay, we need to help Ukraine. We need to help Israel. Okay. We've already sent them money. Believe me, the Americans are tired of the paycheck, the checkbook writing the hot checks, the rubber checks. We can't afford it anymore. We can't send another billion to Ukraine, much less 100 billion, 60 million, billion, whatever. Can't happen. The United States has to stop sending money to other countries. Stop. Turn the faucet off. And then break it, seal it up. And no more handouts from the United States of America. We got to get our own books in order. Right? Got to concile our own books. So Speaker of the House, they're still dealing with that. You Republicans, now y'all, now, all you MAGAs, QAnons, red pillars, conservatives, Republicans, independents, rhinos, Democrats who lean Republican. Now y'all are seeing that, okay? You'll never accomplish taking the country back and seizing it from the deep state or this whatever administration you want to call it, unless we the people do it. Because you can't do it politically, because your own party won't let you succeed. Do you see that now? I've been trying to tell you guys over and over and over and over. Y'all keep trying to do it politically instead of combining and just saying, you know what? Screw the Republican Party. They're too screwed up. We're going to come over here and we're going to create our own third party. And why not make it the MAGA party? Okay. If everybody just left the Republican Party, came over, we're going to create the MAGA party. We're going to create the Trump party, whatever. The Trump Patriot Party. There you go. I don't care what the hell we call it. We can call it Barron Trump's party for all I care. I'm just at the point now where y'all pushed me so far economically, financially, socially, militarily, jurisdictionally. I'm being overwhelmed at the border, south border. I've got immigrants just, they're driving on the streets. They're clogging up our streets. They don't care. They throw trash out. Now they're importing them. They're filling up police stations in certain jurisdictions. All the hotels. This is just totally, totally, totally 100% out of freaking control. Okay. We have no idea who's in this country. I guarantee you there are terrorist cells here right now. They are fully armed and capable. It ain't tough buying weapons off the streets in the United States of America. It's just not. It's a business. Sorry. Black market business. It happens every day. You can't stop it. I don't care how many gun laws that you decide y'all want to create and pass. All you're doing is just put more burden upon the people of America who have a God-given right to protect themselves with any means possible, including owning, possessing, and utilizing a firearm. So my point being is, if you're under 30 years old, they decide they want to go to war in Ukraine and in the Middle East. If you're not in college, you're going to be SOL. You're going to go to war. You're going to get drafted into the military. Because right now, our military, God bless you, the ones of you who are in there actually because you want to be and you're trying to, do something for America because you're a patriot, not in there because you're trying to create dissemination or you're in there to get some type of training to do some nefarious actions further down the road or create disruption and strife within the military, or trying to turn our military into a bunch of transgender girls who are going to get out there and run around and I don't want to break a fingernail, right? Imagine that. Oh, he got his head blown off because I didn't want to break a fingernail. Right. I didn't want to smudge my lipstick. I can just see all that happening. That's basically what they've done to the military. They've gutted it within. A lot of it with the whole thing that they made everybody stab in their arm, allegedly. So, my point being, the United States is bankrupt. Our military, bankrupt. Our strategic oil reserves, bankrupt. Our bank account, bankrupt. Our credit line, bankrupt. Our overseas credit, they're sending it back home as quickly as they can shed it. The financial institutions. Y'all remember when the Federal Reserve, back when Trump was president? And if you remember, I'm pretty sure I'm in a video stating that I fully expected the Federal Reserve to continue or to start raising the interest rates when Trump was president. But you know what? The entire time Trump was president, Biden gets in there, and what are they doing? It's 8% for a home loan. 8%. You did that, Joe Biden. You pretty much single-handedly crushed the domestic energy. Our border, I mean, dude, you're just a disaster. Biden administration is a disaster. It's worse. It's worse than a shitstorm dumpster fire. It's a sad day in America. So my point being is, if we do get overextended, expect it. You may be locked down in your jurisdiction. If you're in one of these blue cities, big blue city, St. Louis, Chicago, LA, Portland, San Francisco, DC, Baltimore, New York, Dallas, Austin, Houston. You may be in a world of shit because this is, it hasn't happened really here in Houston as much as it has happened in other jurisdictions where, the whole Antifa, Black Lives Matter, hey, come tear up the town. We don't give a crap. We're not going to arrest you. You know, if we do, we're just going to bounce you right back out on a PR bond. You know, you're not even going to skip a beat. You can probably go pick up another Molotov cocktail and throw it in another building because they'll still be doing it when you get out. We'll process you so quickly. That's what's going on. Now we have a whole army from Central America. Absolutely. They've been pouring over here by the tens of thousands. Tens of thousands. You know, and I've got to give you know, Greg Abbott, got to take him to the whipping post and whip that boy because he could stop it real easily. All these illegal immigrants that run straight to the Texas Department of Public Safety and get an ID or a driver's license, okay, they're getting it. And why are they getting it? Because the state of Texas is allowing it. Why are they allowing it? Because Greg Abbott's allowing it. That's why. Why is they allowing it? Because it creates a contract, which the DPS goes and sells bonds. The state of Texas. It's a contract. Somebody becomes the creditor, somebody becomes the debtor, somebody becomes the beneficiary, somebody becomes very obtuse to the whole process and doesn't understand what the hell's going on. That's what's going on. So I know I've gone off on a whole bunch of different subjects, but be prepared because you may be stuck in one of these blue cities on lockdown and your grocery store shelves may be bare because the distribution drivers, truck drivers, don't want to drive into a hostile area. They're going to get looted, pulled over, hijacked before they even get to the distribution center or the grocery store. And if you have experienced any type of environmental disaster like we have here in Houston, Texas with Hurricane Harvey, where some areas were flooded for 3 months. My ex-wife's condo, she could not get to her condo for 3.5 months. It sat there underwater for 3.5 months. And when she finally did get in, guess how she got there? They took her in by boat to finally get her stuff. Could not get in there otherwise. Absolutely. That's what happened here in Harris County, Houston, Texas. So I've seen it. I know what it looks like. Luckily, I was in an area of Houston that was high and dry. I was able to function. You know, to me in my area, it was like there wasn't even a hurricane. I don't know what the deal was. It just missed me for some reason. Everywhere else, you know, 12, 14 feet of water. Crazy. But I got HEB, Howard E. Butts, grocery chain, distribution center, Clay Road, about 5 miles away, an HEB grocery store. And guess what? During Hurricane Harvey, nobody filled that grocery store up from the HEB distribution center 5 miles away. The shelves, cupboards, coolers, all were bare. It stayed bare. There was actually a line running out the door when they finally did open up, and there were certain items that you could only buy so many of. You know, like a loaf of bread, I think you like 2 loaves of bread, got 2 gallons of milk, and you know, everything was just very lost my word there. Very restricted in your purchasing ability. Like, you know, if you wanted to get pasta, bags of pasta, there was like a limit on 4 bags of pasta. It didn't matter what kind you got. If you got spaghetti or rotini or anything like that, just 4 bags. So I've experienced it. I've seen it. I know what it's about. So when they tell you to get prepared and have 3 months worth of survival food, this is exactly what they're talking about. Okay, because if civil war happens in the United States, if civil strife breaks out in some of these jurisdictions, especially when I keep harping about the Trump RICO in Georgia, that could be the flashpoint for the whole thing to set off. And, you know, believe me, the federal government doesn't care. They want it to happen. They're egging it on. All you got to do is just listen to the press briefings from that clown KGP. spokesperson for Biden, one that just, can't stop spewing lies one right after another. It's, I don't know how she does it. I just don't know how those people get out there and just lie, and then go home and sleep with a clear conscience. It doesn't make any sense. So that's my own viewpoint. Now you've heard, my commentary on the whole thing. You heard Tucker Carlson. You heard Colonel McGregor. You heard the Cradle article from February 24th that Iran has 2,200 kilometers, which is about 1,400 miles of deep underground military bases. Like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, leave a comment below, leave a question below. If you need any more information, hit me up. If you like these videos, you want to hear more about this particular topic, let me know. The Fearless Floyd Show at yahoo.com. The fearlessfloydshow.com is my website. Go check us out. I am the Fearless Floyd Show across almost every social media platform you can look at. I mainly operate in Telegram, although I am on other channels, YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, Telegram, Facebook, all that. Let's see. I believe I've covered everything else. You can share this video, hit the notification bell. You may or may not get a notification after you subscribe to my channel as well. And that's because I am being shadow banned. Absolutely. All my social media platforms are being shadow banned. My numbers are being clearly repressed, especially in Telegram, where we're looking at it real time. A bunch of us are. So it's not like it's some secret. I've noticed it over the last 2 months. I really didn't say anything. I thought it was just some anomaly, and it's continued to my membership. My numbers are decreasing, even though you can see members joining every day. Yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, that's that. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next video. Again, thank you, Tucker Carlson. Thank you, Colonel McGregor, for your input. Thank you to the Cradle. I've got to give credit where credit's due, as I always do. I'm not endorsing anybody, but I am endorsing Tucker Carlson. Go check him out. And it's we the people, folks. Don't think anybody's going to come save you. You see what they're doing to Trump. They've got him, strapped to a rotisserie, and they're roasting him on the public fire. Absolutely. And, we may see him get burned up. It's a very real possibility. They're taking down, all his pawns, basically, in the Fulton County case. So go check that out. I got a whole video. I'm doing videos on everybody that pleads out. So far, 4 of the 19 defendants have pled out. 15 remain, including Donald John Trump. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Y'all have a great week. Bye-bye.